Wow, how much better was that in parts by Dragons? So I'm not sure about anyone else, but I was really nervous for them today, coming on, stepping up against Bath, especially after yesterday. But they really bought it, especially in the first quarter. They came out, they went hard. Better unit defence by Dragons in the first quarter. They were switching and moving on things. Annika had her feet moving at the back. She wasn't static, Manon. I know she had a taller defender, but it just doesn't work. It didn't work for her being static and Manon. She started to move around things. They were getting tipped to things, and it was really good. Rudland brings clever structure. In the first quarter, some of the feeds were beautiful. They were looking at top and pocket of the D. They weren't necessarily getting stacked. They were using their triangles to open up the circle. They had more connections and they had baseline drives as well as timing on the holds. So it was so much better. Obviously, Bath came on and did a fantastic job as well. Probably not as well as we'd expected, to be fair, to start off with. It was really great. Sorry. It was really great to see them on court, but I think it was just there was a couple of misconnections and it wasn't as slick as I expected, although you could see that it was building and it built all the way through. Quarter two, we had screens galore for Bath in that D, absolutely screens galore. They'd obviously stepped up to this defence and gone, right, if they're going to zone, we're going to step up, we're going to screen, we're going to create our space, and it just worked so well for them. Sorry, forgot to say, first quarter obviously was 13-9 to Bath. So Celtic Dragons scored 9, Bath scored 13. So they kept Bath quite low and they scored quite a lot themselves. What started to happen in the second quarter though, Imogen Allison, oh my goodness, just absolutely shut down Laura Rudland. So she had absolutely nowhere to go. And I've always said one of the best positions on the court is wing defence. If you get a really good wing defence, it can really be a game changer. And Imogen Allison took Laura Rudland out of the game, and they ended up playing with 3 in attack almost. Claire Jones was key for Celtic Dragons in this quarter, and key, I think, she's been key quite a lot actually, quite leading on court, not necessarily as loud as we'd want, but you can see that people look to her and she takes a really good role. Dragons' defence end fell apart a little bit in this quarter, and you can't really blame them when you look at the screens that were being put on. Bath also really pressured the third line, so they couldn't use the reset as much. Whereas the other way round, Bath were constantly, if they couldn't go forward, they'd go back. They'd reset, they'd play the ball, they'd keep the ball moving. Ball speed was great. Dragons also needed to run on the ball because what Bath started to do a lot was sit off a little bit. They noticed that Dragons would stand still to receive the ball and they just run through it, and they got a couple of intercepts that way. So the second quarter saw us 31-15, so that was a massive pull away. 18 goals for Bath and only 6 for Celtic Dragons. Quarter three saw wholesale changes on both sides. So we saw Jones move to wing defence, Claire Jones move to wing defence for Dragons. Sophie Morgan came on at centre, Shona O'Dwyer came on at wing attack, and Christine Shaw went to goalkeeper. Now, and then for Bath, Sharty Curtis came on at goal defence, Abby Robson went on at centre, Betsy Creek went on at goal shooter. Bath attack timing was really good. They were being really creative, they let the ball go, and what they're starting to do is they're pulling out some crazy ass moves on the court that I'm sure we'd all love to do. I mean, going to be trying it next season. We'd all love to be able to do ourselves. And some of them were working, and the occasional time it wouldn't work off, but this is what is going to make them great. They're practicing their trade on the court. They're practicing it in competition environment. And you know what? Once they throw some of the balls away, then they can tweak it next time. And when you have such a lead, this is the time to do it. So they were trying things on court and it was exciting, and they have the confidence to let the ball go. And that's one of the things that Dragons were really struggling with, was that confidence to drive and let the ball go. That's why they end up static. When the scoreline starts to run away, they start to get a bit static, a bit stuck, and they're not moving on to ball, and then they lose the ball. There's no options in front. Bath were keeping Celtic Dragons attack wide and non-ball side, and that was really hard to then have no one was penetrating through the middle, and so therefore it's really hard because you're thrown over the likes of Serena Guthrie, who can jump really high. Obviously not in this quarter, sorry, because she's gone off, but even like Abby Robson, Sharty Curtis, they're really, they can elevate, they can get up there. Imogen Allison, she's going to get up there. You have to make sure that you are coming front for the ball and offering more options. You can have a driving back ball, that's fine, but not somebody stood behind. The defence were keeping all the attack high as well. So on centre passes, if the Dragons attack came over, the defence for Bath would just sit behind them and keep them up, so there was nothing, and they were creating sort of a wall of pressure, so they were getting stuck just north of that transverse line. And Sophie Morgan was very often watching one person, and if that wasn't on, she got really stuck, and the backup didn't necessarily give the back options. They got a couple of 3 seconds in that quarter. Circle defence for Dragons as well, got a little bit static, not necessarily committing on stuff, still using their space, still spacing out a little bit, but not going on anything. So balls were going in, and they were caught stood quite a lot, so they needed to commit. And I don't know whether it was sometimes a unit thing, because you could see sometimes Christina Shaw at the back would go on something forward, but then Abby Tyrrell wouldn't come in and cover her at the back. So I think maybe that's just a tweak in conversations. But yeah, Betsy Creek came on and did a fantastic job. She looked, just as good as Kim Borger on that court. Abby Robson did fantastic as well. Quarter 4, we saw a revert back for Celtic Dragons, and I think this was a good shout actually to almost near their starting lineup. At the back we had Annika, then we had Layla Thomas come on at goal defence. Christina Shaw moved back to wing defence. Claire Jones went on to centre. Laura Ridland came back on a wing attack. Now Serena Guthrie was actually playing wing defence in this quarter. She came back on. Summer Artman went to goalkeeper. I forgot to say as well, how can I have missed that? That we obviously saw Ebony Yusoro Brown come on, and oh my goodness, she's amazing. That was quarter 2, sorry, I forgot to mention that. And I can't believe I forgot to mention that. She shut stuff down, and she's such a formidable player, and you can see her commanding and dictating and talking. Wow, just wow, world class. We all knew that. Anyway, going back to this, so Bath, Summer Artman came back on at goalkeeper, Serena Guthrie came on to wing defence, Rachel Shaw and Jess Shaw switched, so Rachel Shaw came on at wing attack, Betsy Creek went to goal attack, and Kim Borger came on at goal shooter. And it worked equally as well for them in that circle. So having Sophie Dieloff, you would have thought would make a huge impact, but actually Betsy Creek was still moving. So it was still a nice lineup for them. Not as good possibly as the other ones. I mean, when you look at the scores, because quarter 3 score, Bath scored 18 and Celtic Dragons scored 5. Quarter 2, Bath had scored 18, Celtic Dragons scored 6. Quarter 4, Bath only scored 12, so a little less, but still very good. Rudland brought back the feeding role for Celtic Dragons in quarter 4. She didn't have Imogen Allison playing her out the game. That's not to say obviously Serena Guthrie isn't good. It's a different style. Imogen Allison, you cannot get rid of her. She's almost like, and in a really positive way, she's like a rash. She just doesn't go. And that's why she does such a good job. Serena Guthrie's a little bit more flighty, so he's going to run on stuff, but didn't necessarily shut Laura Rudland out of the game as much, which means she got to play a bit more, which means she got to feed again. And she's very good at that role. Again, Celtic Dragons got caught, stood still on some things, and Bath ran through it. You saw Abby Robson come on a few things. That's bread and butter for that team. They work really hard on never stopping. They do not give up. They do not give up on any ball, whether they're a goal shooter or a goalkeeper. They are constantly looking to defend when the other team has the ball. A couple of missed passes for Bath in this quarter. I mean, again, varying the lineups quite a lot means that, you've got to create those connections. So sometimes a couple of missed passes, but again, the missed passes tend to come when they were trying stuff new, when they were doing things like rolls on the back line, going into that backspace, having to turn and sight the ball really quickly. I almost did it then myself. And so you kind of expect it if you're brave enough to try those things, but they're brave enough to try those things now. Just think what they're going to be like in 10 games time. Just think what they're going to be like towards the end of the season if this is what they're trying now. Wow. So we finished 61 to Bath, 29 to Celtic Dragons. Celtic Dragons did improve their performance. It was much better than yesterday. There were some structures, there was some box defence you could see they were trying to do. I think in defence, on their 3-quarter defence, what I want to see them do is not just focus on being in that position, but also stepping up to the runners and stopping those runners coming through, or encouraging them into the space where you want them to be. So you're not just covering the space, but you're aware of the people around in that space as well. That's the one thing I don't think that their zone defence that they put on necessarily does so well. They also do put some pressure on the back line coming out. I'd like them to put more on that. It's almost like it's done for a bit, but then it drops off. And actually you need to just keep going and going and going and going and being relentless with your game plans and being confident to let the ball go. So 3 key things for me for them. Let the ball go has got to be one of the main ones. Bath, I think it's just connections building for them. And like I say, the fact that they're trying out stuff, which is just probably beyond most normal humans, is exciting. And their structure you can see on the court, and oh my goodness, it was lovely. And I know that lots of people have tipped them to be the top this season, and you know what, watching that you can see why. We do say, or I do say, and lots of people say, it's not necessarily 7 superstars on the team, it's how they gel together. The thing is, Bath have superstars in every single one of those seats on their bench and every single one of those players on the court, and they are gelling together. It's going to be hard to beat. I'm going to go. We've got Sirens versus Stars up next, and I don't want to miss it. Oh, I'm just loving this. I hope you guys are too. Last point, Dan Ryan. Dan Ryan, you have to coach these Rhinos and commentate virtually every game, if that's okay. We only want a little bit from you, from the netball fans. Enjoy the next game, guys.